Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first day of the open lecture of our spring school on social XR. This is the third edition. We're very happy to still see that many people are coming. We make an effort to have different people so that you have an interest in coming. And today we have great speakers. So it's my honor to introduce the first. I would like to ask Guo to come and give her talk. She's the Dean's Associate Professor in Human-Centered Computing at Clemson University, where she directs the Gaming and Mediated Experience Lab. And her work focuses on interactive technology like online games, esports, and live streaming and social VR, and also generative AI, how they shape interpersonal relationship and group behavior, and also how to design safe and inclusive XR experiences. I'm very happy to introduce her and looking forward to hear your lecture. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for the nice introduction. It's my honor and pleasure to come here to visit Amsterdam, like my first time here, and to give this talk and trying to give you a big picture about what I have been doing like in the past like several years. Like regarding like social VR, like what people do and what are the benefits and risks. So just a little bit agenda, because like I think most of you probably already know like what social VR is. So I'll just briefly like talk about that, and then like we will just diving into some of those like unique like opportunities and benefits I have found for like a diverse like social VR like users. But we also found the same like unique features you could get all of those benefits could lead to like novel type of risks. So we're also going to talk about that. But of course, I don't want to just talk about problems. I also want to like highlight what is maybe there are some solutions and we could like engage. So like some of our work are like also look into like those new solutions we could use to like maximize like those benefits and mitigate those risks. At last, I would touch a little bit about some of those future directions. How can we build safer and inclusive social VR spaces for everyone? So like very quickly, a trigger warning, in this talk, we do include some of the quotes and stories about people's negative experiences such as harassment. So just want to give you a little bit like heads up. So what is social VR? Very briefly, like social VR is 3D like virtual spaces where like multiple users can interact with one another through VR head-mounted displays. Some of those are like popular like social VR like platforms. Like maybe some of you have used any of those like VR chat. Like anyone like use that before? Yeah, okay, nodding, hands up. That's great. So like that is the most creative like a platform because like what you can do is really customize your avatars and do all of those creative activities together. One of my favorite is actually Allspace VR, which like unfortunately like discontinued. That's the space you really can go to do all of this professional development and work together, such as Python workshop, like learning coding. Of course, there are some other ones like Rec Room, like on the top. A lot of mini games you could play. There are also a lot of kids like in that space, so you could play basketball or ball with a like 9-year-old. And it's special and also like big screen. Big screen is really for you to watch movies like with your friends, such as if you don't go to like movie theater together, just watch movies like together in big screen. Anyway, so like social VR is like closely connected with the term like metaverse. Maybe now it's not that new because it has been several years, like which means it's a consistent and a collaborative like virtual space as a combination of VR, AR, and internet. There are some of those features we would like to highlight why social VR is unique and why do we think would create those new opportunities and risks for people. So one thing I really like is this body tracked avatars. So that means your avatar's movement would correspond to your like offline like physical activities in real time. For example, if you want to hug someone in like social VR, you would like to make the move to actually hug them in your like offline life. Like different from a lot of those online games, you use like synchronous like voice communication to to like interact with people like in social VR. That also connected to what I'm going to talk about the risk, because if people can hear you, right, like it give out a lot of cues about your identity, such as your gender, age, and race. Um, we also really like this simulated physical touch feature, like in social VR, because that means you could really do like fist bump or like high five and hug people. So a lot of like non-verbal like a communication, like rather than just talk, type. So like because all of those diverse features, like social VR has attracted a lot of populations and communities. In my own research, we have studied women, like social VR users, and LGBTQ, like social VR user, how they form their communities and do all of this like cool things together. So our focus is first, I have highlighted all of those cool features and people can do in social VR, which is very different from just like looking at your avatars on screen, right? Like in a traditional game, or it's also very different from like single like user VR because you are in it with other people. So we want to say how this affect people's interaction, like through embodiment. But we also want to look at, well, like now we have all of those opportunities, it may also lead to new risks. So like what are they, like how people deal with that. And last, we also want to develop technologies to mitigate those risks and to maximize those benefits in a more proactive rather than reactive way, because that's one of the big problem we have found in our research is a lot of those safety features to protect the people in social VR is reactive. That means something happened, you use this feature to react to that. But that means the damage is already in there. So what we're trying to say, how can we prevent it in a more like proactive way? So our work in the past 5 years, so we have done a lot of like mixed methods, like research to collect those like empirical like evidence to just trying to understand what people are doing there because it's so new, and like do they have any risks and how they deal with that. As I can see here, we have done interviews and participatory observation sessions, large-scale online surveys, and content analysis of social media data. I will share some of those findings in the next few slides. Based on those empirical evidence, we have also done like several efforts to design and build like new technologies, trying to help people to navigate this space while still enjoy like all of those like novel activities to connect like with each other. So like some of those I will also touch in my talk. So like, let's look at the good things first, because I always want to send out a positive vibe first, right? So like what people are doing here and how they benefit from this. Just very quickly about this concept of embodiment, because this is really one of the key thing like we found like how people can benefit like from like social VR. It's through like embodiment. In like VR literature, like embodiment has been defined in many different ways, but in our work, we really focus on how you feel, right? Like through your virtual body, but you also treat your virtual body as your own body. So like this is really the way we take in our work. So if you divide it really in 3 dimensions, the sense of self-location, that means how you feel the space around you through this virtual body as your own body. Sense of agency is how you feel like control, right? So like about this environment through this virtual body. And last, sense of body ownership, like again, how you feel this virtual body as your own body. So there are 3 dimensions that we have done like in our work. At the individual level, we would like to look into how people could engage in those novel like identity practices by like rediscovering their like physical body again online. Again, as I said, if you are in social VR, you really could treat your virtual body as your physical body. So we say how this affect people's like identity practices. The interpersonal like dimension will also also look at collaboration and relationship building through social VR and how social VR could provide more nuanced forms of social support, especially for those marginalized communities. And also like as a whole, like how like social VR could promote this embodied visibility of those communities. So like, let me share some of those interesting quote we got from our study at the like individual dimension, especially for the LGBTQ communities, and they told us they actually benefit a lot from like engage in social VR because they could use those full body tracked avatars to experience gender identity in a realistic way and a safer way because you don't actually need to go anywhere. Like you just sit at home, but you can try to wear a different body and look at how your body would move like in VR. So here's a quote. It's like, in VR, you can be what you truly feel like you are inside. But in real life, you're stuck with what you have. So like, they would like to leverage this opportunity to explore. And also the voice feature like also help them train and validate a like gender appropriate like voice. At the interpersonal level, again, like we look at how, like what people can do, right? So it's not just gaming. What we found that people actually do a lot of work together in those various spaces. And what they especially like, it's they feel I'm really working with someone face to face, like you are physically doing something. I remember one person told me like they had a group meeting like in social VR. Was it really like you could pick up a note and pass over the desk, so it's really feel like you are like physically like engaged together rather than just look at the screen. We also found a lot of people would leverage social VR to get those like physicalized like social support. That's very different from like online like social media platform. What you can do to support people, right, is to send a message, I support you, or like send a heart as like emoji. But in social VR, what they said is you could actually go up to them and give them a hug. That really means a lot like for them. So it's not like I type a message said, hey, I really miss you here. You can just walk to the avatar and give them a hug. Like what really makes a difference is, as I mentioned, if you want to give people a hug in VR, you need to actually hug like in your offline world. So like I feel like they're really doing this like to the other person. Again, like as a whole together, like based on all of those embodied activities and support, especially a lot of those marginalized communities, they feel they have more embodied visibility, like together, because again, like you could really show up, right, and they like advocate, like for your community. So like people said, for example, the like LGBTQ community, they feel they're stronger because they would have a stronger voice to like really like physically do something together. But again, now I have gone through some of the positive stories, so we're going to the a little bit darker side. What we found is all of those nice features I just mentioned, like voice, embodiment, and simulated physical actions, could also lead to like different types of risks like people could encounter. We also look into the three dimensions at individual level. Although we say, yeah, you could really engage in social VR to explore your like identity, but it's actually very challenging for them to actually do that because there are a lot of like limitations. At the like interpersonal level, like a lot of our work are like focused on harassment. So, or like we can say like how social VR like introduce a new form of embodied harassment because again, it's the same thing as you can hug a person, right? Like you could punch a person too. So it's like the same dynamic, but you could use it in the wrong way. There are also a lot of privacy and safety risks. People are worried about like disclosing their like personal information because again, if you could do voice chat and create the avatars like exactly like you, it's much easier to figure out who you are. So they are like concerned about all of those. There is also tensions in like children and adults interactions. As I said, there are a lot of kids in social media spaces. I don't know if any of you like actually like go there like very frequently. So there are a lot of tensions because the kids just run around and try to play the game. However, the adults feel like, well, you are just messing up here. So we have like witnesses like several cases like that. And then at the community level, although we said, well, yeah, you can have better embodied visibility. However, to a lot of people, it's a privilege because again, not everyone can go there to have this visibility. So let's look some of those examples. Like again, as I mentioned, those LGBTQ community could really explore the identity, but they also feel like threatened because again, you have very limited like options to do avatar design and customization to really like represent your identity. They also feel like this is anti like non-cisgender like rhetorics, like especially in the like public like social media spaces. Also, there is this common like behavior of misgendering. So here is an interesting quote we got from our participants. It just says, like everyone just assume if you go to like social VR, like everyone is a guy, like until you can prove it. So if you go there, everyone think you're just a dude, and they just prove to me like if you're a woman, like they are like very stressful like about that. And this embodied harassment, it's a like new concept that we have explored for like several years. Because again, instead of sending people a threatened message on Twitter, right, or like Facebook, like a messenger, you could just walk to them and punch them. And for a lot of those folks, they feel it's a higher risk and more damage because again, you feel so real, like as in social VR. And we also found a lot of women would encounter like embodied sexual like assault, and for them it's definitely a like a much higher damage. And some of them like told us they really like can internalize those shame and harm, and they decide to like never go back again. So like we feel like this type of like embodied harassment probably would lead to more damage like to people because again it's physicalized and more realistic. So like for this, we did a large scale survey like last year just to look at whether or not your identity matters in social VR. So we basically send this survey to people to ask them if you kind of disclose or like present your like offline identity, how frequently you get harassed. So like in this survey, we got a sample of 223 like participants. I would also like to highlight if you look at country of origin, it's not a US based sample because that's something like we have talked a lot in like social VR like research. A lot of those like sample are like US based. This one is actually not. If you look at this, North American is only 11. And actually, a lot of them are like from like Europe, so it's about half are like based in like Europe. Which we think is very like valuable because it really shows like harassment in social media as a like global like problem. So it's not just like good for certain locations. So some of those highlights, we do find women like reported they are harassed more frequently than men for basically everything. So it's like if you go in and then people figure out if you are a woman, is either through your avatar or like voice, you get harassed for your age, like device you use, your gender identity, like sex assigned at birth, and sexuality. So like basically everything. Non-binary, third gender, or like agender individuals are like harassed more frequently than men. For gender, like sub-community like membership, I want to explain this a little bit. It's basically if you say you are a fairy, like do you know if like what fairy means? Okay, so it's kind of like a like humanoid like animal avatar. So you have a human body, but you have a cat head, like something like that. So like they call those as fairies. So like they feel like if they disclose they belong to the like fairies communities, they get harassed more than men, and also almost everything. They are also harassed more frequently than women for sub-community like membership and like sexuality. LGBTQ like individuals are harassed more frequently than straight like individuals for like gender identity, sub-community membership, and sexuality. We did a little like about race, but it's as I can like tell you, it's hard to do this for our sample because like our sample does not have a lot of those minorities. So like what we do is just lump everyone like who are not white like together, and then just compare like non-white individuals and white individuals and how they feel like the frequency of harassment. What we can tell it's the non-white individuals are harassed more frequently than white individuals for age, device use, and race, ethnicity, and almost significantly for like country of origin and sex, like assigned birth. But you can tell from the bar chart is not that too different. So like again, like for like this population, we feel like a little bit difficult to do the data analysis just because like we don't have a lot in our sample. Well, we found like white individuals are harassed more frequently than non-white individuals for like disability, which I found this is like finding very interesting, and I feel like we probably would dive more like into this and probably get a like bigger sample to like highlight right like why like disability which matters so much here and how people disclose and how they get treated. Okay, and the tensions between different ages is another interesting finding. Like we found, because they there is this phenomenon called reversed harassment. Because in the like offline world, usually we feel because of the power dynamic, children are more vulnerable, right? So like we want to protect children, but in social where a lot of adults told us they are harassed by kids. So we asked them why. So they feel like, yeah, like as this quote said, these kids will try to break the game and get super tall or super short or screaming and doing silly stuff. So basically they feel like I'm so annoyed and I feel like harassed by those kids. And what we found is really this is this mismatch like between children and adults understandings of play, because we did interview some of those teens and like younger kids. They say, no, I'm not harassing people. I'm just playing, right? So it's like I'm just exploring this space because I want to be like rambunctious and adventurous. But for the adults, it's like you're disrupting like this whole field, and I feel like I'm harassed. This is also kind of interesting to see how people would perceive like harassment in very different ways, which I will come back in a little bit. At last, again, which community gets to be visible or like more visible than others is a problem. And who gets to build and engage in such communities safely is also a problem. So it's like, yes, everyone can have this embodied privilege, but whether or not it's safe for you to do it, or it's like whether or not you have this, right, like capacity or like device to do it. Like such as this quote said, I don't know a lot of Black people, even myself, can afford it. So they don't think I can go there to build this community because I can afford this device, or I don't feel safe like to do that. Right on time. So, like after all of those, I feel like well, there are some not so good stories and experience, and we really want to help people to fight with it. So, like then we want to ask this question, right? How can we develop some of the solutions and to fight or like mitigate like the harassment and like discrimination and all the risks they have encountered. And what we really want to do is in a proactive way, like rather than say, well, we have those problems, so we're going to fix them like after they have happened. We want to say like, how can we prevent them from like happening like at the first place? But there are some challenges we want to acknowledge. So the first challenge is no consensus on what social behaviors are deemed to be harassment risky rather than just inappropriate or found play. So some of the quotes I have showed you, which in the real life you probably wouldn't think is harassment. So it's like someone blocking my view, like some people told us that's harassment. I really hate it. But it's like in the real world, if someone walk in front of you, you just walk around. So it's in appropriate and annoying, but probably is not considered as harassment. And also the same thing as the tensions between children and adults, because the kids think they're just fine playing, but the adults feel like they are being harassed. The second challenge is like existing techniques to prevent and mitigate those risks are mainly reactive, as I have like mentioned like several times. So like it's not like the platforms don't do anything. They have done a lot of things. So we have a lot of good safety features such as mute. If you don't want to hear other people, you just mute them and you could block people. You can put a like space bubble if you don't want other people to get close to you. That's actually really good if you don't want like other people to like physically like touch you or like interact with you. But again, like all of those are kind of reactive. That means something happened. Well, like this person said some like nasty things, so I mute them. But you already heard what they said, so the damage is already there. The challenge three is how moderation, like which is a common method for like online safety. If you have like used any of those online platforms, you probably know it's really like there's like human moderator or like AI moderator to like moderate this community and a conversation. But how can we use this in a more physicalized and embodied like space is unknown. So I want to share some of those like our like current and ongoing effort to address those challenges. So to address challenge one, right, like because people don't have a definition or consensus about what should be considered as risk and harassment, we wanted to work around it. So we thought about how about we just ask them, what do you think, right? Like you can consent, like in this way, you also kind of give the agency and the power back to those users because they can decide what they want and like, or like do not want to do. So in this work, and we try to conceptualize consent and consent practices in social VR. So like we ask people, if you want to consent or say yes or no, what do you actually do in like social VR? And like how do you feel about those gestures and like behavior to say like yes or no? We also try to identify what are the existing mechanics like people could do in like social VR. Because again, there is no feature called consent in like any of those like social VR platforms right now, but people are already doing like all of those behaviors. So we want to look at what you informally do and how this can help us if we do want to like design some future like formal consent mechanics in social VR. So I'm not going to go to like too much details, but what we found interesting is how those like social VR like users think about consent is really boundary. So it's like if I invite you to come to my boundary, that's consent. Like I said yes. If I don't like allow you to come to my boundary, then it's not. So like their consent practice is really their negotiation of boundaries. So like this would based on who they're interacting with, what they're doing, and also like how specific like those activities are. So like what like I can share like a little bit. So like what people consent in social VR is usually first voice, right? Because you can just say yes, yes, I'm coming. But a lot of times they like to use those nonverbal communication. So it's like thumbs up, yes, that's yes. If thumbs down, it's no, I'm not coming. And you could also send invitations to people and like coming to the events or like come to your own words. If you accept the like invitation, people would think you have consent to come to this event, to this space. So like whatever happens there, we have your consent. So based on those findings, we are trying to figure out if we want to add those formal like mechanics in social VR to help people navigate the subject nature of like harassment risk, like in those spaces, what should we do? So the first thing that we found is it's very important to maintaining this natural social experiences while like, interacting with others. Because again, people don't want to click the bubble every 5 seconds, right? So like, do I have your consent? Yes, no. So it's like every time like someone come here, you need to click the bubble. They don't want it. So like they said, well, there are some activities maybe we just don't need consent, but some other activities I would need it. So like in general, they still want to simulate this natural flow of experience. And it's also like important to customize this consent mechanism. So like based on the relationship to the requester, for example, if you are my friend, if I already know you, maybe you don't need consent. The nature of action, people did say if it's just like a games play, it's less needed to have those consent, but if it's more intimate and physical and or it's like sexual activities, they definitely need consent. And when and where of interaction in public space versus in a private like space, like just with like your friends. And a loss is very important. You can take it back. So it's not like I give you your consent, it will be like this forever. I would have my right to take it back if I feel like our relationship has changed. So like there are some of those interesting things have like inspired our like design. So like we're currently like working on some prototype about like how to like actually like employ like those consent mechanisms. All right, our effort to address like challenging two, we have explored like this new approach of AI companions like as a new harassment like mitigation approach in social VR. Like how we come out like this idea is we really realize those limitations of all of those existing like safety and mechanism. So, because people told me it's like first I don't know how to use those. I also don't get any support like after I'm being harassed or like I have challenges. So they feel like all of those existing like safety features, like either mute others, put in bubble, or like in Horizon words, you could pause and send yourself to a like safety zone. They feel like it doesn't give me those informational support. It also does not give me like those like emotional support. It's like I feel like right now I feel bad. I want someone come here to hug me, but all of this like safety features would not do that. So then like we thought about how about we like think about like companionship as a new way because if you want informational support and emotional support and esteem support, like usually you got those from companionship because it is very crucial for people's everyday like psychological like well-being. Like everyone would like to have someone like you could trust and build a relationship with. We also feel like AI companions such as NPCs have long been used to fulfill like players' social and emotional needs in games. So people already know, well, like those like AI, if I feel like unsafe in the game, there is this dog, right? Like I could like travel together with, or like I have this horse, like it can be with me like all the time. And AI companions have potential to support those under addressed harassment mitigation needs. Because again, if you think about like companions, it does not always need to be a human. Because like a stuffed animal can be a companion. Like this is very usual for the kids. And we also have a lot of those chatbots. Like right now, people have been talking with them and trying to get some comfort, right? Or like calm themselves down. So we would like to explore like this new approach. So this is our new like High 2025 paper, which will be presented next, well, like actually this month, it's already April. It's so fast. So like in this work, we're like trying to understand, especially women's like inventions for like leveraging AI as companionship to help them like navigate those harassment like risks. Because we pick like women like because from our previous research, they are the population feel like they are harassed more, and but they don't have any like good ways like to protect themselves. So they have some ways like such as I just leave, right? So it's like I just take off my headset, or I just go in with my friends because so like if you are not alone, maybe you are less likely to get harassed. Or it's like I would just harass some other people back. That's actually their strategy. It's like if someone is mean to me, I would be mean to them. So like that's one way to protect themselves. But again, like they don't feel any of those is effective because again, like they still feel weak and I'm just like escape this whole problem. So what we found is they would like to use AI as accessible companions. Like that means, especially if no one is there with them. So if they don't have a friend to go in like with them, we will have this AI companion here, so I don't feel alone. Like informational companions is really give them instant like information like about what is the risk and what you can do like to fight back. And emotional support companions, it's like again, if I feel bad, if like someone did bad thing to me, I would want like someone to be there immediately and to give me like those emotional comfort. Again, you can get all of those from like a human companions, but for them, it's not likely you always have one like human companion like to be there like with you, and also protective companions. We have a like wonderful quote from like a participant. So they said they want their like AI companion as small and comfort as a house cat, like when they need it, but it can be big and intimidating as a bodyguard, like if they need someone to protect them. So they really want the AI to change the shape, like which like we found it's very like novel and interesting. But we also want to like unpack like all of those like social technical complexities for designing and implementing like those AI companions, because again it's a very sensitive topic, right? Like some people feel like why do I need a machine to comfort me, like in those very sensitive like contexts such as harassment. They are also like worried about if you just become too like dependable, right? Like on the tool, like rather than just building like your relationships like with other human beings. So like we did find like several takeaways if we do want to employ like this new technology in social VR as AI companions. I think it's better to use those AI companions to foster those mutual support and emotional bonding and trust, like among those social media users, rather than like replacing their human connections. So it's not like you can only use those AI companions. Maybe they will help you to connect with other humans. Like that's the better way. It's also like important to enhance a sense of comfort rather than alienation, because like some people feel like if I go in, oh here there's like AI with me, like people may think I'm weird and don't want to interact with me. So like they would like to say how can we just blend in, right? Like rather than just like separate myself like from others. It's also important to think about like personal abuses of those AI companions, because we talk about what if people just send the AI to harass others, right? Because it's your opinion, it can do all of those things for you. So like how can we prevent like those abuses? But it's a very like interesting direction, and we would love to like explore more. Okay, our last effort to address the challenge three, like which is really about like moderation. But again, like although like I separate those effort as like two like challenge one to three, but I feel like they really can like work together like as a whole and trying to build this like safer environment for everyone. So like in this work, we're looking into how can we like leverage human AI collaboration to better moderate those nuanced cases of harassment in social VR. Just like very quickly, why we want to focus on like moderation, it's because again like those mechanisms have been long used like online and trying to like prevent online harassment. Those are some from Reddit and Twitch. So if you have used those, and you will know like there's always some type of like moderation like a mechanism, right? You know, so it's either a like human or a bot will do that. So like AI, but AI-based moderation has also been used like in those online platforms. Basically, they refer to the use of machine learning and decision making to monitor those online spaces for like violations. So like if you got blocked or like your post is removed, like online, it's usually like some type of like moderation going on. However, like AI moderation has not been used in like social VR. So we are trying to think about what are the opportunities and the limitations if we do use that like in social VR spaces, and how can we actually like design those. So like we went to like studying like some of those like actual social VR users to just ask them, well, like right now we don't have those AI moderator, if we do add it, like what do you want it to be, and what do you think like will be risks? Like again, like I'm not going to go to those details, but one thing like it struck me, it's very interesting. Like some people feel like they don't trust human moderators because they're subjective and biased, so they are worried like the human moderators will actually harassment because they don't have the same like opinions. If you are familiar like with some of those mechanics in like VR chat, there like you could vote to kick someone out. So like they feel like that can be abused because it's subjective. It's done by human. What they feel like if you use the AI moderator, it's more it's more objective because it's the same across the board. Like whether or not this is true, I mean, like of course, like everyone would have like different opinions, but that's what they think. It's like if you use a algorithm or a AI to detect and to ban people, it's more consistent. But they also feel like if everything is the same, then you cannot account for those nuanced cases of harassment. So for example, if you are with a bunch of your friends, you insult each other, you think, well, it's just our friendship, right? So it doesn't matter. But if an AI moderator is there, you're going to get kicked out because they think this is harassment. So there are a lot of like trade-offs if you want to be consistent, but you also want to account for all of those nuances of the context. So like what we have been doing is it's a collaboration like with University of Buffalo, trying to think about how can we actually like implement this new like moderation system like based on human AI collaboration. So like in the center of it, as you can see, this multimodal like detection. Trying to use the like AI to detect like if there are any signs of like violations, but this is a two-way communication. So the AI will actually send the those incidents to the like human moderators and explain and trying to say like this is how I make this decision, and then the human moderators would provide feedback to refine the algorithm, and then just like increase like this accuracy. But again, like we feel like this has to be a two-way like approach because we cannot just let AI do everything, but also for the like human moderators, they don't have capacity to actually moderate the whole environment. So we want to say if we have this explain and refine process, whether or not like that like would like work better. But again, like this is very early stage, and we are like still working on that. All right, I think I'm right on time, and we will have time for questions. So as a closing like remark, what would be the bigger picture? Like based on like all my work in the past like several years, I have been thinking about how can we create safe, inclusive, and supportive social spaces to empower like diverse communities. Because again, like in our like research, we study like everyone, like people of different gender and sexuality and race. And educational background of different financial situation, like how can we do that? And another like a follow-up question is like right now everyone's talking about AI, and we're thinking about how can we leverage this technology to like improve like those space. But we want to go beyond, right? Like just use AI as a punisher or like a moderator, but how can we like get more out of this nuances and technology to really help like address those under-addressed harassment and mitigation needs, like such as emotional support, how to connect people, and how to better provide information, like rather than just reacting, right? It's like there's a bad thing, we reacted to that, but then it's bad because the harm is already here. So yeah, that's some of our like future directions we have been working on. Okay, and then I would like to like thank all my wonderful students and collaborators in the past several years. Like without them, like we cannot do this work. I would also like to thank the U.S. like National Science Foundation and for supporting like our work. Like that's a great like help like for us to do like all of those like multi-layered work. All right, that's the end of my talk, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Oh, yeah, please.
Hi, I'm name's Jesse. I work at the University of Amsterdam. I work on large-scale modifiable environments. So, oh, there's mine. All right,
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't aware of there being mine. Let me toggle the
Yes.
little button.
Yes.
All right.
That works.
All right, much better. Thanks for a very nice talk. Like I said, my name is Jesse. I work on large-scale online games. So I was very interested when you mentioned that when you were talking about the proactive moderation mechanisms and you wanted to experiment with that in a prototype. I was wondering, how do you approach that? Because many of these systems that you study and that I study, they seem to have a large overlap. Many are closed source systems, not able to modify. So I'm wondering how you approach building such a product? Do you have one? What's your thinking in
That's
that?
a great question. So like as I said, it's ongoing work, and like we feel like you probably know this. Like the challenge is the training data. So it's like it's really hard to like if you want to do those like multi-model like detection, it's hard to get those training data. So like what we did before is we collected I think it's over 200 like YouTube videos like about like what people do and all of those like abuse and like harassment like online. So like that's part of it. But again, like that's why like in that graph and we showed like a fewer sample. So it's like you don't need big data, but we just like trying to collect a like very good quality like of data set. Because again, like if you want to detecting, you need to know like some of those like behaviors, what is it? And we also have like one project like Julia is right there. So like I know like we have been like doing something like trying to collect like more nuanced like data set too. So like again, it's very early stage. We're still at this like training stage, and like after that, like I was like working with like University of Buffalo. So like hopefully we will actually get that algorithm right, and then like probably will have a small like prototype and to test that first.
Yeah, right. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Oh, it's the first time I use a microphone. Thank you for the talk. I have a curiosity about that concept of consent because I find it very interesting. But I'm wondering, for example, because we arrived to it saying that sometimes it's hard to tell if harassment is harassment or if it's not. So I'm thinking about the situation of children and adults. How would that look like? Like during a game, for example, which is considered an activity which is not very dangerous, to still get consent somehow.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's something like we feel like yeah like one of the principle is like you want to have those constant like a mechanism but without disrupting like people's normal activities, like as you said, well if you're like playing game it cannot be like pop out a bubble and then you need to click like every 5 minutes. And also for like children and adults, it's like do children have the right knowledge and to know right like what they have consent to. So like we think like customization is really like important. So it's like for those space, as you said, with children probably the consent would be very different, right? Like compared to like some of those space are like mainly like adults. Like for children only space, like it's also very different if the children playing with children or like children playing with adults. So like based on who you request the consent with, like we think the like mechanism like probably will be fine-tuned to that population. It's also different spaces too. Like it's very different if you're in a public space versus you're in a private world, like just with your friends. So for example, like all the children in a like small world, like playing with friends, do they need consent? Like maybe they don't need it. So like again, it's not like you like we have to consent for everything. Some situations you don't need it, but it's very going down to the context and who you are with.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Can
Oh.
Hello? Hello?
Oh, yeah, it's on.
Um, thank you for the talk. That was really interesting. I was wondering if you use social VR yourself and specifically how you get into contact with these communities that use social VR.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because again, like if you want to study them, like you need to know them, right? So I do use social VR myself. I use Horizon Words most. Like sometimes I go to VR chat, but I think that's too much for me. But like as I mentioned before, like before I really like all space VR. So like how it started is really like getting to know the community and like especially like I think when we did the study about the like LGBTQ community, we had one student who is like in that community, and he also used like social VR a lot. So like he was our main contact because we would go to those events and activities like held like for those communities and build connections and also like really build trust, right? And then like make sure they want to talk with us. And so like again, like I feel if you want to like study like social media users, like first you need to understand like what they're doing and who they are and their concerns. So like we have been doing this for several years. So like at the beginning, like we just went to those spaces and to do observations and also just like get to know like those communities. They were very open to talk with us. But I don't know the like situation now because like I feel like after the pandemic, it's like everything is very different. But at that time, and we actually get to know a lot of like good connections that some of those moderators like also connect us like to the larger community. So, thank you. Oh, okay.
Seems there's still time. So I really like this idea of the personal space, right? And I mean, in real life, it's also very fascinating because it's very personal and very cultural and so on. And of course, there's a lot of differences that we experience in VR, right? So can you elaborate a little bit more about why the agreement we have in real life seems to magically work and absolutely doesn't work in virtual reality about personal space?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Like I was wondering about that too. Like I also feel like in VR space actually works better than the on-screen space, like in terms of like personal like space. Because again, like when we ask like some of those like social VR like users, because they usually like also play like traditional like games like on screen. So like usually they feel like, well, if my avatar get crowded like with other avatar on screen, I don't actually care, like because I was just looking at my avatars on on the screen. But in the VR space, they actually think that matters. They would be very sensitive if someone get very close to them, because again, like they feel it's very realistic. So like for some people, as you said, they can't copy like those social norms like in the offline world to the social space. So it's like, especially for women, it's like if there's someone like getting really close to me, well, like I don't have the quote here, but some women told us like one time, like one person's avatar get really close to me and lean towards me, and sounds like he was going to kiss me, and I feel super uncomfortable. So like that's one example. It's like the same norm as in the like offline world, because you don't just approach a stranger and trying to like trying to kiss him. Like something like that. But we also found like different social VR users may have different perceptions, because some people feel this is just a game, so I don't care. So it's like if someone gets super close to me, I also don't care, and like I don't think that's a big problem, because again, like I think this really goes back to how different people perceive those space around them. Some of them would follow exactly like what you are going to do, like in the offline world. Then those norms would work, because the same would happen like in the offline world, it would work like in like VR space too. But some people, if they think this is a game, then it would not work, because I'm just going to do whatever I want in a game. Great. Oh, yeah, sure. Like, I think we have a couple minutes. Yeah.
Children play basically with adults, and this was interesting for me because it seemed a bit of a reverse harassment kind of thing, in which you would think more that children need to be protected. And that made me think also of, like in a playground, you would frown upon an adult playing with a lot of kids, right? Unless it's a parent or something, or at least it would be negotiated. And if the adult is playing with the kids, then it is kind of understood that the kids are the one making the rules, and it's not a thing that they would ruin the experience for the adult. While here in VR, it seems like this concept doesn't hold, right? That maybe the adults want to have a kid-free space. But also kids need to have an adult-free space in the sense that they can have something that they can play and they can negotiate. I don't know if you have thought about this concept on how to create safe spaces in which, yeah, if I'm not part of that target demographic or that target group, I shouldn't be allowed to go in, or I should abide by those rules.
Yeah, we definitely thought about that. So like one of our like suggestion probably is just have like child account, right? So it's like if you have a child account, you only go to those spaces that is for children. So you don't interact like with adults, is to protect like both sides, because adults don't feel like, well, there's some kids messing around, but also it's to protect the children, because they're still like vulnerable. Like what if like some of the adults like treat them down? But the problem is people don't follow those rules, right? It's like if you say, well, like report your age, I'm not gonna say I'm 9, say I'm 18, right? So so like that's another way is how to verify and actually like put those people in the like right space. And like, do we like need those like child-free like space, and how to do that? I mean, like Roblox, that's one way, like all the kids go there to play, but they have the same problem, like right, like harassment and bully and everything. So like I think probably like age appropriate policy and norms like would be good, and also like really to teach the kids, right, and also adults, is like what is the appropriate like behavior, because what we found like the problem like for those kids is like, no one told them like what you should do and what you shouldn't do, so they feel like I'm just going to do like everything. Because like one time like when I was in the space, and then there was a child just like having one of those guns and then just run around and shoot people, and they like all the adults feel like, well, this is so inappropriate, and some of those adults have trauma experiences, so they're really afraid of guns. And then like that is kind of like an extreme like case, but like the case is like, no one told me like I cannot do this. So like what would be the appropriate guidelines, like especially for the like younger population, would be interesting. And I would say like I'm totally like up to like child free like space or like adult free space just for the two like different population. But then like I think the problem is actually like people will actually follow those and only go to those spaces. Maybe if you say it's like, well, like this is a space is adult only, like that may encourage some of those children to go there because they think it's just fun to just go to say like what people are doing there. But yeah, that's definitely a great point. Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we're done. So I would like to thank our speaker again. And yeah, now we have our break.
Thank you. Thank you.